Hello and welcome to the Car Care Love channel live stream. How you guys doing? And let's wait for everybody to come on in. How you guys doing? Hope everybody's doing well. I'll give you a small update on the new car for the channel. That's what we have been calling it internally. Um, it does have 700 miles already. That's all I can tell you. And when it gets to 1,000, which is very soon here, I'm going to film the video, have it all ready, and if you are just tuning in the first time, I bought a new car. I gave you a few clues. It's a Toyota. That's kind of obvious, I think, if you've been watching my channel. But head over we're done with the live stream. If you're interested, head over to the community tab where I've put one clue from the car, which I'm about to put a new one potentially tomorrow. And whoever guesses the car exactly, all the model, all the details, will get a gift from me. So you should see that video in the next few weeks. I'm hoping next weekend, maybe I will film that video, and then, on the next slot, you'll see it. Hope everybody was doing well. It's been a while. A happy Thanksgiving, in case it's a little late for me, but I hope everybody enjoyed their time, caught up with their family, and had a good time. Having said that, everybody, let's get started. Are we ready? Let's do this. So Tuyen Tran, thank you so much, sir, for joining the live stream. I appreciate it. Carla V, I bought a car this week because I was desperate and paid a $5,000 markup. I wish I would have listened to one of your videos. Honestly, Carla, I would love to know what kind of car it is. You didn't list it, but $5,000, I know I wish you wouldn't have, paid that, because I wish nobody pays a penny over what the car is worth, which is maximum is the MSRP. But it's not as bad. I have been seeing some crazy numbers, and it is tarnishing permanently the already horrible reputation of the automotive business. And it just pains me that dealerships are not helping their case. It's just not good. I really don't like it. This is some people have called me all kinds of things, but I don't. This is not supply and demand. This is too much. Asking 5,000, that's already too much. But some dealerships are asking 15, 20. Be very careful, folks. Unless you are desperate, and sometimes I understand, Carla, maybe your car broke down, you really needed a car, and you have no choice here. What are you gonna do? But at least 5,000 is still better than 15 and 20 and 25, which is already there these days. So be careful. Lala G, how you doing, brother? And staying warm in the Windy City. Yes, it's starting to get cold, although we've had a couple of days of 60 degrees, which is unheard of in December in Chicago. But yeah, what are you going to do? It's cold. And JT2 Quick, how you doing, sir? Yeah, Carla, I would love to know what kind of car it is. I'll look through the chat. Hopefully you're still watching and you can reply so we know what kind of car it is. So Jeff Griffiths, is there a high voltage battery fan filter on a 2015 Avalon hybrid? If so, where it is? So this is where it should have one, but we've seen a few that don't. So this is something you're going to want to check. You're going to want to open the passenger side the driver's side rear door. As soon as you open the door, you'll see a vent right next to the back of the seat. Look inside. You should see a mesh filter. In order to remove that, and I'm hoping we're going to get a video soon on that. We finally got a volunteer. It's going to be a Lexus, but it's the same thing as the Avalon. You do have to pull the bottom seat and that kind of the bolster. You have to pull it up, and then you can access the filter. It's just a mesh filter, the small filter that comes in, and you can replace it or clean it. Sorry. Toyota 2ARFE. I have a 2014 Camry SE. I want to get heated seats from a 2014 Camry XLE. How much money do you think it would cost for the used seats plus labor? Honestly, the used seats will vary significantly. I wouldn't be able to tell you. But labor, I mean, I would put it, if you don't have to get any custom wiring, which you most likely will need to a certain degree, maybe 2 to 3 hours of labor in the worst case scenario. I mean, the seats, they're 4 bolts and they come out a couple connectors. They're not really something hard. But running new wires, getting the switch orientated, some of these depends on the build and where it was built. Some of them will not have the wire harness already installed. So you have to do a light custom wiring, but nothing involved, nothing crazy. So I wouldn't say more than 2 3 hours of labor in the worst case scenario. So Glenn Nichols, I have a 2009 RX 350 V6 engine knock until oil pressure and heat is up to par. Serviced by Lexus LS Life. Nothing showed up in this Lexus service history. Could Lexus have taken this off their service history to cover it up? Well, once a record is on, it cannot be undone. That's how the dealership system works. Once the service repair order is closed, they can no longer go and edit it. So that's how this works. That's why they are service records. You cannot modify them when everything is said and done. You can modify them when they are an open um, repair order. But once you pick up the car and actually pay the bill or whatever the case, if it's warranty, you close it, it's done, it's set. You can't really see this. But one thing I will tell you about the 2GR FE engine in your Lexus, and actually this applies to all 2GR FE 3.5 liter V6, the old one, like the not the FKS version with a direct injection and port, the older one. So they did have this noise. They do, it sounds like knocking. Some people describe it as piston slap. That's that's something that is, I don't want to call it a known issue because it's not really an issue. They will make that noise. Even the Forerunners make that noise with the 1GR. Both versions, especially the newer one, makes it more. That is normal for these. So I would need to hear it to make sure that this is the noise that I'm referring to. But if it's very loud, I wouldn't describe it as knocking. It sounds more like clattering, if anything, like kind of a deep clattering. So if that's the noise if that's a more close description to it, that is actually normal, and don't worry about it. If it goes away when it's hot, life is good, and I wouldn't worry about it. So Jeff asked on a Lexus, I'm guessing this is an RX on a 350h all-wheel drive. You replace one tire, do you have to replace all four? So on hybrids, and I'm guessing this is a 350h hybrid all-wheel drive, you want to replace two tires. So the front tires need to be matching, the rears need to be matching. But because there's no drive shaft between them, it's not as much as like conventional all-wheel drive cars. HP Paramo, my 2020 Tacoma, 14,000 miles, makes a rattle knocking sound inside the dashboard, right side next to the cap pillar. What should I do? Take it to the dealership, or is it an easy fix? Well, it's not a hard fix, but you have warranty. Why are you, wasting your time doing this? Just drop it off at the dealership. It's going to take a little bit of time. What's hard about this type of stuff is finding the source, not really fixing it, because once you find it, it's just a matter of installation and life is good. But sometimes finding the exact panel that is creaking or rattling. Sorry, guys, I'm going to move the screen a little bit. Finding the panel that is rattling and creaking and making like the source of the noise can be a little bit time consuming, but it's nothing impossible. I mean, with experience, you're going to have to hold the panel, see which one is rattling until it stops, and take it off, see what's causing it. Usually it's a clip or something of that nature. We'll insulate that clip and life's good. But you have warranty. I would definitely take it to the dealership. So Chad and Melissa, in your opinion, what's the best Toyota ever made? That's a really hard question to answer, honestly. I wouldn't say there's one particular model that I'll say this is the best Toyota ever made, but definitely the highlights from the current era. The Land Cruisers are very reliable. The Avalons have been extremely reliable lately, and the Forerunners, of course. Tacoma in the first years they've had the current generation, but lately they've been doing really good. Um, Camry's been the current generation Camry or the fourth generation hybrid system. Any hybrid car with 16 Prius, your latest generation Camry, Venza RAV4, Sienna, all these and the other models, of course, with the fourth generation hybrid, they've been super reliable. I mean, really, the oldest one is 5 years old as we're saying right now. They we really don't see a lot of issues with those. Just regular maintenance, and that's it. Lately I've been seeing a lot of maintenance, not much repairs. We've had a period there where it was repair, 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 but lately it's all been maintenance. There hasn't been much really, so things are going really well. Hossein Awada, I have a 2019 Camry SE, 25,000 miles, For a smoother ride, can I remove the SE rims and tires and install LE hybrid rims and tires? So you could, and it'll make a small difference, but most of the difference is really in the springs, because they're stiffer springs in the shocks, they're stiffer shocks, they're different. But going from, if memory serves right, 18-inch wheel to a 17 or 18 or 16, it's going to make a difference because now your tire profile will be higher, and now you have more something absorbing the shocks as you drive. That's always the case. And if you want to do this, and this is for everybody else, whenever you want a smoother ride, always look at your tires. The bigger the tire, not that you're going to go oversized, but the smaller your wheel and the bigger the tire sidewall is, the smoother the ride will be. And there's no better way than to stay within the manufacturer's specified limits than look at the lower model, lower trim of that model, which will have smaller wheels, bigger sidewall tires, and go with that size. That way you're within the specs of this car. So in this case, for example, you're going from an SE Camry to an LE Camry, which is the same model. I think that will make a difference. Not as much as when you go all out and replace the whole suspension, but it's gonna make a noticeable difference. Music Archiver. Greetings from Australia. Oh, that is down under. That's pretty far. I am looking to buy a 2017 Toyota Orion Camry V6. Is there anything I should look out for? Also, this model still has the 2GR FE, not the FKS. Okay, so that engine, honestly, the whole car might be a little bit different than the US model, but that V6 is really good. Maintenance is a big thing. Oil leaks could be an issue, although this is a later model, so most of the common oil leaks should have been fixed at this point. But you still want to do a full inspection on the car, make sure nothing was missed, look at the service history. This is, the standard stuff. I put a video actually today for certified used cars. I want everyone, when you're buying a used car, keep those advices in mind. Now, not every car is going to live up to the standard of a certified car, but still, some of this information you can apply to it. The first thing is look at dealer breakers. Is this car a total disaster? If it's not a total disaster, then we're going to start looking at what does it need and use that to negotiate the price. That's the biggest thing. And if you're not, familiar with cars and their inspections, hire someone you trust, because trust me, being doing too much work of research and checking and looking before you buy the car is a very good idea. It's going to be a stressful time because you're trying to figure out, and you're going to see cars and they're going to turn out to be a disaster, and then you're going to let them go and all that. But this is worth it because you're only going to be in the car buying process for a small amount of time, but then you're going to own this car for potentially 10, 15 years. So spend the time before you buy the car. That is very important. So Hermes Mercury Drive Lab says, can I drive under 3 miles an hour in a straight line on a pavement, briefly cycling through 4 high, 4 low, and rear locker every 3 months and to maintain four-wheel drive, or I really have to drive the 10 miles every month per the user manual? You don't have to drive the 10 miles. And switching from 4 high to 4 low, you need to be in neutral and completely stopped. So yes, the idea is that 10-mile thing. I don't know why they recommended the 10 miles. It just doesn't make sense a little bit. But here's what I would do. Make sure the car is fully warmed up, because they want you to drive it at 10 miles just to warm it up in case. That's the generic thing. But make sure the car is warmed up fully. Switch to 4 high, switch to 4 low. 4 low, you don't even have to drive it. You just want to make the switch. Actually, I would do it 2-3 times when you're stopped, just to kind of move things back and forth, and life is good. I wouldn't, need to do the 10 miles, honestly. Toyota 2ARFE, what is the best LED low beam and fog lights I can buy for my 2014 Camry that are super bright? In your opinion, I want ones that super bright and legal. So just so you know, there is a certain legality issue with headlights and fog lights. One thing I will tell you about the 14 Camry, the low beam headlights, I like one company. They're not this. I've known this company well before the channel even existed. VLEDs, and I'm going to put it in the chat here for everybody to see it. This is one company that I trust. they do good work. I like their LED lights. They're high quality. They're not cheapo, and they flicker and they have their own colors. They're really good, but they're also very expensive. So that's the other catch. As far as fog lights, in your 14 Camry, you want a fog light that is a whole housing, not just the bulb that you put in, because no matter what bulb you put, it's going to blind everybody, and that's illegal and very dangerous. And please don't do that. When you buy the whole fog light, it's going to have a different lens, and now it's not going to be glaring and blinding everybody as you drive. So look at the options. Honestly, I'm not very familiar with aftermarket options for fog lights, but as far as LED headlights, don't buy the most powerful one, because again, you're going to have glare, because even though it's a lens and it's a lot better than, say, just a regular reflective beam, but it's still going to create some glare. So be careful with those. Amir GH, my 2016 4Runner Limited X-Series are leaking. I am replacing all four with Bilstein 5100s. Anything to keep in mind? How much labor should I expect? So you're doing good, because the X3S is just ridiculous to fix. And then you're gonna notice after you replace it, it's like, what was the whole fuss about? Because I just don't see the difference, honestly. But your labor wise, and this is interesting, because this is going to vary a little bit. Some shops will look at it as a modification, so they're going to charge accordingly. Some shops will see it as, oh, it's just a swapping struts around. In the rears, I would maybe put in an hour and a half labor tops. I mean, the rears are very simple. There's just one nut at the top, one bolt at the bottom, and off she goes. As far as the lines for the X3 is, and this is a mistake that I see, which I don't understand. Let's talk about this real quick. So there is lines and an accumulator that runs. Some mechanics just cut the line and leave everything in there. If you're going to remove the X3s, why are you lugging this extra weight around? Remove everything and be done with it. It's done. It's garbage anyways. Even if you want to revert to it, you have to buy everything again. Might as well just remove it. And for the fronts, I would estimate about 2 to 3 hours, something in that range should be sufficient. Now, if this is a rusty car, which even at 5 years old, if this is rusty, it might add a little bit of labor, because especially with the rear shocks, they might have to cut them. Yeah, welcome to the Rust Belt. So that might add another hour and a half in labor, but this is about the estimates. You typically will not need an alignment after a 4Runner shock replacement, because it's not a alignment one. But if you want to get an alignment at the same time, it's not the end of the world. Alignments, they will really vary, but in Chicago, they're around $90 to $100 for a Toyota alignment. Nazar Prokudin. I'm getting terrible fuel consumption on my 2005 RAV4 2.0 all-wheel drive. City is around 12 to 13 miles per gallon. Brakes are good. What else could be wrong? Well, it could be a lot of things. We're talking about an older car. It could be something with the engine, compression, engine's just getting old. I didn't list the miles. But other stuff I would look at is maintenance items first. Is the engine running good? Do you have a check engine light? Are the spark plugs good? Check compression. This is the first things you want to start with. Then ask yourself, what did this just happen all of a sudden, or you were getting really good gas mileage and all of a sudden it dropped? Because I get so many people that ask about this. Oh, my gas mileage is not good. Well, was it ever good? That's the big question here, because if your gas mileage was good and all of a sudden it dropped, it warrants an investigation, because something happened. But if you don't know if this car ever had good mileage, it could have been like that for a very long time. And it gets to a point where you're chasing after a little bit of gas mileage improvement, and you end up spending so much and you're still not getting anywhere. Brakes are the first thing. And I know you said brakes are good, but double check them, because the 05 RAV4 rear brakes, notorious to seize. So check that. Other thing is tires. Other thing is alignment. You start getting into these things, but don't overspend on replacing parts. You want an investigation, not just let's keep throwing parts at it until you get 4 miles per gallon better, because then you spend way too much and you never recuperate that expense. So JRE 1147, love your channel. You are the proud owner of a 2018 Tacoma. Thank you so much, sir, for watching the channel. I see the continuation of your question. When I cleaned out my cabin air filter, I noticed some rat droppings. How did they get in there? And does that mean they probably got into the engine air filter as well? So this is actually an interesting question, how they get in there. So the cowl, we've talked about this in one of the videos. The cowl is the part where the wipers sit, that, between the hood and the windshield. That actually has an opening underneath it where when you put it on fresh air, that's a wide open opening that goes straight into the cabin filter. So they'll find their way. Trust me, rats are, they can get in very tight spaces. So they find their way there and they go on top of the cabin filter. Unless your cabin filter is eaten through, where you see a giant hole in it, they did not make it past that. As far as the air filter is a little harder to get into. It depends on the model. On your, I'm trying to remember, on your Tacoma, actually, they can get into the air filter, but they'll only be underneath it, not on top of it. So check the air filter, see if there's any damage. I really have never seen rats get into an air filter. They usually around the engine bay is much nicer. Why would they crawl inside the air filter? But usually they go in the cabin filter because of you have something in the car that is attracting them, and that's what you gotta look at. Do you have food in the car? Do you have something that is attracting them to try to go inside? Because typically they won't go inside unless there's something really inviting them in. Usually rodents will congregate around the engine bay for heat, especially in the winter. Right now, we are in the Chicago, we are in the prime rodent season. So be careful. If you have food in your car, you want to keep it away. If you have, the worst thing is when they congregate in your home garage. And now you don't even know they're there. And you park your car and they have an open season party in your car. Be careful with this. Look for signs of them. Usually the droplings, not a very comfortable subject to talk about, but the droplings, unfortunately, that's what you're going to see. And if you see them, you need to act. You need to clean. You need to, you know, what was it? Mineral oil. Some mineral oils will work. Um, you need to be a little bit proactive about this if you see signs that they were around. That is very important because they could really wreak havoc in your car. Be careful. So, Tom Davis, always good to hear from a professional. Thank you so much, Tom, for joining the live stream. I really appreciate it. What's your opinion of the 2011 2017 Lexus CT200? Is it a good hybrid? Are there any major weaknesses, e.g., valve? So, the CT200, if I was going to buy one, I would avoid 11, 12, 13. I would go 14 and up. If you really want to play it, say 15 and up. They had major issues, just like the third generation Prius at the beginning. Oil burning, EGR problem, head gasket problems. The same, because they're essentially a nice third generation Prius. That's what they are. That's what they're heavily based off of. So if you stay away from the first few years where they had issues, where they actually fixed them and went forward, but actually really good cars. The one complaint about the third generation Prius from some is they're a little bit on the plasticky, cheaper side. The interior is not very refined. Remember, this is a purpose-built car for efficiency. It's not really made to be a nice place. And the CT200 came kind of the answer to that. Hey, here is the same car that gets the same, almost the same efficiency, but it's a much nicer place to be. More expensive, obviously, but it was an option. So for those that wanted a nicer place to be, but anything over 14, if you really want to play, say 15 and up, should be good. They're really good cars. Jason Montejano, 2012 Camry, parking brake won't engage. Engages on incline sometimes. Adjusting didn't help. Mechanic said pedal is a culprit. Possible. How did I break it? So I don't think you broke it, but one thing about these is I've never really seen a pedal unless someone's been messing with it, which now I can see that your mechanic potentially messed with it. There's actually an adjustment on the pedal. The cable could stretch, depends how it was used, but if the adjustment is right in the back, then you could adjust the pedal, but honestly, it's the same thing. You either pull it from here or pull it from here. But another place that is also an adjustment is where, like right underneath the center console, there's another adjustment point where the one cable going from the pedal connects to the two cables that go to each side, left and right in the back. That's another point. You don't want to max it on one side and now everything else is loose. You want to tighten it here, tighten it here, tighten it there, tighten it in the back. That way you're distributing the adjustment, not just crank one end of it off and then the rest are just loose. You don't want to do that. You want to leave yourself room for adjustment. So I would start, adjust the cable at the pedal, adjust it in the middle, and then see what happens from there. So Venkati Suvarna, sorry, I am not very good at reading names. I have seen all your videos. Help me book the 2021 Venza. This this is a token of appreciation. Thank you so much, sir. I really appreciate your generosity. Any tips on how long can I drive the car during the day during the braking period? So you can drive it as long as you need. One thing you want to keep in mind with the braking period on cars. Look, people have been saying, and this has been circulating lately because people are spending small fortunes on cars these days and they really want to take care of them. Don't believe the thing, oh, there's no braking period. They drive these cars, they run these engines. They don't. Because if you open your owner's manual, your latest 2021, 2022 model, you're going to find out that, ooh, there is a whole section on braking time, braking period. So you just want to take it easy. Now, something about new car owners that I see, everybody will normally take it easy. Who's going to buy a brand new car that they just spent a small fortune on, and as soon as they get on the street, they're just going to stomp on the gas pedal and floor it and let's go? Nobody's really going to do that. Even if, you are really ruthless with your car. Nobody's going to do that. But still, you want to be conscious that you're not just babying the car the first 1,000 miles because it's a new car. You're actually doing it because it is a new car and you're trying to take care of it. That's the mentality that I want you to be in. Take care of this car. Read the braking period requirements and follow them to the best of your ability. So many viewers have asked me, well, what if I buy this car and it's, I'm driving it 400 or 500 miles because I have to go to ABC dealer from far away to buy it because there's no cars right now. Well, just take it easy on the drive. Try not to accelerate very hard. Try not to drive over 65, 70 miles an hour. Try to vary your speed as much as possible. You can't also pull miracles here, but as much as possible, you're trying, you're putting in effort. Because trust me, there are some people that will buy the car, baby it the first day, and then the next day, they'll just pedal to the metal because they're late for work and they don't care. Well, try not to do that. Try is the key word here. It happens once or twice, not the end of the world, but we're trying to minimize it intentionally. That's the only advice. And congratulations to you for buying your awesome 2021 Venza. It's actually a really nice car and it's selling well. The way I see it, a lot of people like it. So, Andre, okay, I'm not going to try to read that. Mrs. Karkerna just said she likes it when I try to read the names. But yeah. 2017 RAV4, 45,000 miles. Shakes when stopped in gear and fully warmed up. Only RPM drops to almost 500. You found another 2017 in the lot that does the same thing. So the first thing is I would clean the throttle body. That sounds like a classic throttle body that is dirty symptom. Clean it to start. 45,000 miles, I doubt you have any issues with, you know, motor mounts and stuff like that. That is a little too early, but I would clean the throttle body very well and then see what happens. That's the first thing I would try. I'm surprised the dealership didn't try that to begin with. They're instead try to go and find you another car. It's too much work. Just clean the throttle body and see what happens. So let's see here. Gold Warrior, are you Persian? Close. I'm from Iraq originally. Lou Flores, how you doing, sir? Thank you so much for joining the live stream. Jorge Cardona, do you recommend an aftermarket wheel hub for my Tundra as the original Toyota part is way too expensive? So the wheel hub, as long as it's from a good aftermarket brand, it should be okay. It's just a chunk of metal, but some of these need to be balanced, and that's where if you notice any vibrations afterward, that's not good. But for a hub, I would actually go original wheel bearing, aftermarket hub, because the wheel bearing is really what's going to get the beating, not the hub itself. The hub is just a piece of metal that's going to spin. But the wheel bearing, I would not cheap on, but the hub, yeah, you could. You could. So Linda M, my tire pressure light was on continuously, and I checked all tires to make sure they are at 32 psi, but the light did not go off. What else can I do? And this is a 2008 Highlander. So Linda, do this. Your spare tire also have a sensor on this car. So, and this is usually the common one that causes the light to go on. If you checked the spare tire already, inflate the tires to 35 psi, and then if memory, so I'm going off memory here, this is a little older, either underneath the dash on the driver's side, or most likely, and again, I'm going off memory, the glove box, open it right there. You're going to see a button to reset. You're going to start your car, you're in park, you're going to push that button and continue to hold it until the light initially will go off, and then it'll flash 3 times. Wait for it, continue to hold it until it does that. It might come on afterwards, but only do that after you have checked all 5 tires and set them to 35 psi. Once you've done that and the light did go off, you might need to take it for a short drive for it to completely go off. Then reset your tires back down to 32, 33. You want to keep them in 35. That's also not an issue. But the spare tire is one that I would check, because that does have a sensor on a 2008 Highlander. So Big Apple voiceover, what undercoating do you recommend for my 21 Tacoma TRD Sport frame? Oil-based? So I usually like fluid film. The oil-based one, they can be a little, how would I say it? They tend to fall off after a time. With any undercoating, honestly, you really want to touch it up periodically. But I like fluid film. It's easy to apply. It's non-toxic. It is stinky, and it does kind of make a mess if you work on your car, because it doesn't really dry up very well. But it works well. It does really protect, and it's not really expensive. But this is more the DIY route. Fluid film is meant for DIY. I think some professionals are starting to use it because it is actually good, but you do need to reapply it. If you just apply it once and forget it, it's going to wear off. And that's the downside of fluid film. But if you continuously reapply it here and there, you're not going to have issues with it. So Chris Bretz, can you make a video comparing Toyota Lexus average maintenance and parts cost? I like that recommendation, actually, because in reality, most of them are going to be the same. They use the same parts, same filter, same maintenance items. But I could start doing a video on more across the difference between them, because I want to have like 2 similar cars so you can see how they're exactly similar. But certain cars, like the Lexuses that are only on Lexus, IS, GS, LS, these are the models that you're not going to have a similar car to on the Toyota side. And similarly, I don't think there's actually a car from Toyota that Lexus doesn't have in one way, shape, or form. Maybe a Camry, Corolla. They don't have something exactly the same, but yeah, I can do that. And another video actually that has come up, and I want your feedback on. So it's a video idea that me and Mrs. Carcare and I were talking about. And what if I did and this would be a video that I would release on a non-scheduled day. Would you guys be interested on the newer models as they come out on an interactive, it's going to be a very long video, owner's manual in video? That's just an idea we've been toying with here. Let me know if you guys would be interested. Basically, I'll go through the car, go through every single feature and how to use it and how it works. Not how it works, because then we'll be here for 4 days, but how to use it. So basically, instead of reading your owner's manual, we're just going to make it as an interactive video where here's how this works, here's how this is supposed to function, and all the hidden features behind it. Of course, this video takes a very long time to make, but I'm willing to do it if you guys are interested, and it's going to be new models only. That's just an idea we're thinking about. Let me know what you think. So we were right here. Frank D. Does my 2005 Lexus ES 330 3MZFE have an interference or non-interference engine? So let's clarify this because I've been asked this question many times, and let's clarify this. If you have an MZ engine and you open the hood, it says VVTI, it is interference. And this is actually, there's been a lot of like uh, back and forth information on this. Even the repair manual, it's not very clear. So I got a clear answer on this. VVTI engines are interference. Non-VVTI MZ engines, whether it's in 1MZ, 3MZ, they are non-interference. So I hope that clears it out for everybody. So Stephen Yu, does Toyota dealer add engine flush additives when the engine oil changed? My 2021 Venza will be 5,000 miles soon. Typically they don't, and if they do, they will ask you because you need to pay extra for that. But typically we don't. My dealership where I work, we don't, because the best additive you can add to the oil is the oil itself. That's you don't need to double down on additives. It just doesn't make sense. Okay. Joey the Dime. I am looking at a 2022 Tacoma SRXS cab, four-wheel drive with 2.5, 2.7 four-cylinder engine. It would be my daily driver. Do you think the truck would be underpowered? So honestly, it is, but for what purpose? If you are using it to, haul your simple stuff, not loaded all the time, and you're just going to use it to go back and forth to work, then it's not. It is slow, but again, it's a truck. You don't want to be in the. It's not a fast truck at all. But is it going to be so underpowered that you're going to feel like, oh my God, we just need to get going here? No, it's not like that. But if you load it up and you have stuff in the bed and you're trying to pull something behind you, yeah, you're going to feel it. You're going to feel like it's laboring a little bit. But for the reliability and for the cost of these, it's a really good truck. I mean, that engine is really, really good. Not that the V6 is not good, but this one is just a standout. It's really good. And I would drive one. Just pay attention to its power level. It is a peppy engine. It takes to take off. It doesn't feel like it. But under load, it's going to feel a little labored. And it's not an issue, but that's the trade-off with that. So Fuad says, is is Toyota quality now downgraded? It's not. Really, it's not. Everybody will have an opinion on this. Did Toyota quality go down and everything? And it's a matter of opinion. But you know what? I work in a shop and I've seen all the older stuff and I see the new stuff. Things have changed, but I wouldn't say the quality have dropped. For as complicated as cars have gotten today, we're doing pretty good because some other manufacturers are just having disasters one after another, and still is. But we don't have disasters. We have, the maintenance needs have gone up, the costs of things have gone up, repairs expenses have gone up, but not the reliability itself. I still see newer cars, especially with Uber around, Lyft, and the taxis around Chicago area. It's not very uncommon to see a 3-year-old car with 200,000 miles. That's not uncommon. That is actually common. So when I see these cars, you look at the car from the outside, you listen to the way it runs. I as a dealership, you go pick up a car, you bring it in the shop, you go take it for a quick test drive. I don't always just look at the miles. Sometimes, it's in for an oil change, a tire rotation, and a recall or software update for something or another. Well, I get in the car, just take it around the block, make sure the wheel's not falling off, and I didn't know or tell the owner about. And then I bring in the shop. I'm like, man, this car looks clean for a taxi or looks clean for an Uber car. I look at the mile; it has 210,000 miles. So the quality didn't go down. You can still take these cars, drive them 200, 300,000 miles with basic maintenance. Yeah, there's going to be repairs here and there, of course, but nothing major. You still have the original engine, still have the original transmission. I don't think their quality has gone down, honestly. They got more complicated with time, with emission requirement and all that mess. But that doesn't mean that they're not good. Victor Ramirez, which Toyota is more quieter on the inside, the XSE Camry or the Avalon XSE, both hybrid? And how can we make the inside of economy cars quieter when driving from road noise? So the Avalon will obviously be quieter a little bit than the Camry because it's more of an upscaler car. But if quietness is really a top priority for you, I would switch to the Lexus side. Go to an ES350. It's going to be definitely quieter than both because it's intended to be, and it's still going to be um, as reliable and not high cost of maintenance. But as far as road noise on economy cars, how do you make them quieter? There's Dynamat, there's all these insulation companies, but there's a trade-off, and most people never rarely talk about the trade-off really. When you insulate a car heavily with Dynamat or whatever, you're adding weight. And Dynamat, if you ever handled it, it's actually pretty heavy, the stuff. One sheet is not heavy, but when you pile multiple sheets to cover the whole car, it's actually pretty heavy. And you're adding basically like having a passenger in the car all the time. And your gas mileage will reflect that. So there is a trade-off there, just so you know that. So Byron Haley, thank you so much for joining the live stream. Kendrick, it's really good to see you guys. So Nazar Prukadin, any thoughts on the 2016 Lexus NX 200T? As long as we are in the um, understanding that turbo engines, they require more maintenance, and at some point these turbos will, they will have an issue. And we've seen a few issues with the NX200T, turbos blowing smoke, but not excessive, I will say, because they sold a lot of these. Not excessive, but I'm still nervous about them. When they go, this is not potentially going to be the car that you drive 15, 20 years, put 300,000 miles on it with nothing. Just do nothing to it, just like other models. This is going to be a model that you're going to easily get to 100, 150,000 miles, 10 years without issues. But at some point, you're going to have to replace these turbos. Now, is that really the end of the world? It's not. But not having the turbos would have been better because then you wouldn't even have to do that one thing. But maintenance is key with these. Folks, turbos, they generate a lot of heat. They spin at very high speeds. And with all their best intentions, the manufacturers try. The biggest problem with turbo is the heat. You cook the oil in them, and that's what really killed them. The modern turbos, and that's why you all of a sudden have turbos everywhere. They have separate cooling systems, which the older cars didn't have it. They have a kind of a design in the oil lines to kind of retain that oil flow after you shut it off, so when you cook everything inside the oil. But still, if you really push these cars, all this stuff will not really help, and you'll still destroy that turbo over time. But it's a really good car otherwise, but just that turbo knocks it a little bit off top priority, top reliability, because at some point you're going to have to replace it. Turbos are not cheap and labor intensive a little bit, but that's the only thing with the Lexus NX and actually any turbo engine. They're going to last 100, 150,000 miles perfectly, but after that, you might have to replace one. Not the end of the world, but if you didn't have it, you wouldn't have to replace it. That's how I uh, that's how I look at it. So Vincent, my first time watching live stream. Well, let's give it up for Vincent. Welcome, Vincent, to the live stream. So Phil AM just replaced the Prius transmission fluid. I was able to put 4 quarts, but now it rattles at low speeds. Low fluid? Potentially. I would actually double check it. Do not just go by the amount of fluid. You want to add the fluid until it overflows. Carla V, who got back to us, I bought a 2020 Toyota Corolla Cross. Actually, you actually bought a really nice car. That's at least. So 5,000 miles, Carla, $5,000 over the MSRP is not too bad. You're driving a very exclusive car. There's not a lot of these now. Everybody wants them. It's actually a very nice car. I've had the pleasure of taking them around the block because they're that rare. That's why I haven't talked about them in any videos. I don't have much experience with them yet. They're good cars. The components that they have and the drivetrain they have is really good, but I haven't had an ability to take one home, drive it for a few days, and see how I feel about it. But that hopefully is coming up. I'm trying to get one so I can do a full review. But in order to do a review, I need to drive the car for a few days, live with it for a few days, to know how they actually drive and how I feel about them. Sorry, I'm just going through. You guys are having a conversation about the prices of cars. They're ridiculous. Do you guys see that? What is it, Rav4 Prime somewhere in California? $96,000. I don't care how good the Prime is. That is ridiculous. Just, I really hope nobody buys that car, and I hope it rots there in that lot. Unfortunately, there's no rust. It would have been nice for it to rot because that is just not right. I don't care what supply and demand is. You don't mark up a car almost 50%. That is ridiculous. I don't care how good the car is, and whatever the case, you do not mark a car almost 50%. And I hope people that live around that area remember that dealership when this is over and they want to shop for their next car, because that's the kind of dealership that is. It's just wrong. Omar Alvarado. My 2008 Lexus RX 350 has about 110,000 miles. Besides oil changes every 5,000 miles, is using top tier gas a great way to increase engine longevity and fewer parts breaking down? So yes, using top tier fuel, it's a good fuel quality. It's a good fuel in general. And the one thing about about fuel, using top tier fuel is really good, but there are a lot of things that even makes top tier fuel not really do much for your car. Short drives. There is nothing when it comes to fuel and carboning up and all this stuff. There is nothing that destroys the internal of your engine than starting your car, driving it 1 mile, and shutting it off. There's actually a condition with Toyotas, and they're notorious for this. All of them, especially the newer ones with direct injection. Actually, let me talk about this real quick. It's called cylinder washdown, and it's a very specific sequence of events that need to happen, and it will give you the scare of your life. Here it is, so everybody would know. Here's a typical scenario in Chicagoland. People, and I do this scenario. You start your car in your garage. Your garage is cold. It needs to be cold. You start your car in your garage, back it out of the garage, shut it off. A different scenario is people that have 4 cars, 2 cars in the garage, 2 cars in the driveway, and they have kids using different cars. So in order to move the one car to take the other car out, you're gonna start this car, move it, shut it off, then leave it. You come back to it, start it up, move it, shut it off. Start it off, move it, shut it off. And believe it or not, some people will do this unintentionally and unaware of it. They'll do it 4 or 5 times and then never drive this car for a week. Well, here's what just happened right now. Every time you start gasoline cars, they are running rich. That's just how they are. So you're dumping all this fuel inside the combustion chamber. Well, that fuel, if you never drive it long enough and it's cold, it's just going to linger there and eventually wash down the cylinder walls. Believe it or not, with low tension piston rings, you do not have enough force to actually create compression. They need a little bit of oil film to really create that compression. So what happens with Toyota engines, and this might be other manufacturers too. I only work on Toyotas. You'll get to the car eventually and start it. It will have zero compression. It will just crank like a weird sound. Yeah, if you've ever heard a car crank with no compression, it's a scary sound. The engine will crank super quick and it won't start. There is nothing that destroys the cylinder walls and severely destroys your engine more than this. And we get cars towed into the dealership because of cylinder washdown, and this is the time for it, because for some reason the cold weather makes this even worse. Whatever you do not drive your car for a very short period of time and shut it off, because all that gasoline is going to linger. It's oil is going to linger. Everything lingers, and that's how you start your carbon buildup. That's how you start your scratching your cylinder walls, and everything goes downhill from there. There cannot be worse damage than not driving a car, or worse, driving it very short periods. Be very careful. If you ever run into this, by the way, things happen. If anybody's had cylinder wash down, it sucks because it'll really give you a good scare. All of a sudden, your car that ran perfectly fine and all of a sudden has no compression. Here's what you do. Two solutions. The ideal solution is that you take the spark plugs out, put only a couple drops of oil in each cylinder and start it. It'll smoke for a little while, but it'll be okay. And if you cannot do that, say there's a V6, you're stuck somewhere, and this is going to sound a little odd, turn the key on, put your foot all the way to the floor on the gas pedal. Start it. Be ready to take your foot off the gas, because I cannot tell you how bad it is for an engine when you first start it and it's barely starting and you let it rev to max with full throttle. Be careful. As soon as it catches, let go of the throttle. Sometimes this doesn't work, sometimes it does, but this is the only thing you really can do. Avoiding it is the best thing. I just thought I'd let you know this, because this is something you won't find out in any book, any repair, this is something you just see in the shop. And trust me, the first one that we had, we were scratching our heads like, what's going on here? What happened to this car? And then all of a sudden it starts and everything is perfect. It's like, this doesn't make sense. And after much diagnosis and looking into what happened, we discovered this, how would I call it? Like a disease of cars that it happens. Cylinder washdown. Be careful. Koa, what is your opinion on Lexus ES300H? They're really good. They're based off of what is it called? The Avalon. Really good cars. And usually the hybrid system that went into these, even the previous generation and the current generation, they're really good. I like those. They're very quiet. They're my kind of car. Hint, hint. And no, not we said it's a Toyota. Damon Collins, thank you so much for your generosity, sir. So I have a 2018 Toyota Prado 1G RFE. For those who are not familiar, the Prado is basically the same as a GX, Lexus GX, but in Kuwait, in the Middle East, they use a 1G RFE, which I believe is the same. Should be the version that is the same as a 4. And the Toyota, let's clarify this. Lexus GX is exactly the same as a Toyota Prado overseas. The Toyota 4Runner is actually heavily based on the Prado, just like the Tacoma is heavily based on the Hilux. Just so we clarified that, because some people started yelling when I said the Lexus GX is basically a fancy 4Runner. Oh, it's actually a Prado. Well, they're all the same. So thought I'd say that. The dealer uses 20W50. I remember this from the Middle East. They love to use thick oils. They're really not good on modern engines. The most I would use on that engine is actually 530, because 20W50, I know the weather is crazy over there. I come from that area. But still, 20W50 is way much for VVTi engines. That's just my opinion. So CNY bus driver, what is the estimated cost of timing belt replacement on a 2004 Camry with 3.0 V6? Memory serves right, on those good days for replacing timing belts, it was 4 hours of labor for the timing belt, and I think it was 5 with a water pump and 6 with seals. But honestly, most of the time we just put the seals and never charge for labor, because I mean, it's right there. Might as well. So Shrep 777, Rav4 Prime in cold weather, compressor starts for about 10 seconds, very loud. I heard it. Is there a fix for it, software recall? So the Rav4 Prime, we've been hearing this. This is actually potentially an issue under investigation. It's either I haven't had one in person to talk about, but I've heard about it through the internal channels. There is either a noise from the ABS actuator actually causing that, or the AC compressor itself cycling refrigerant to the battery. Why would it cycle refrigerant to the battery when it's cold? That's a mystery, but it is doing something with the compressor. I don't have a lot of information on this. This is definitely something that I would need to look into personally in-person diagnosis. So, but it's either or. Definitely take it to your dealerships and have them look into it, because this is an active issue that currently being looked at. Not an issue, but it might be something with the programming. But there is no repair that I know of on this one. So, Eon Hands, is the Toyota Axio a good car? Honestly, we don't have the Toyota Axio, but if I'm just going off memory because I've been asked this question before. I think, and you know what? Let's just Google it real quick. I think it's one of the scions, either the XA or it's the same. It's called the Toyota Axio. Okay, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it was a different name. So it looks like a Corolla, like '09 to 10. If you list the year, I would have to look into them honestly, see what engine they have, and then I'll be able to give you a idea of what's going on, of how good that model is, because we don't have that exact model. So Shark Bone 2GRFE engine often cranks for more than 3 seconds when starting. When the engine is hot, what could be the issue? Honestly, it's what do you call it? Vapor lock, and this is something also common with the 2GR. You could start replacing injectors and fuel pump and try this, try that, and do all this mess, or you could just wait for 3 more seconds for the next 200,000 miles, and it'll be okay. Honestly, I wouldn't do anything for it because this is something I've heard, I've seen, and usually the conversation is, do you want us to start replacing parts because something is leaving a drop, and that's enough to lock things and make it take longer. Just create a small air bubble in the fuel line that takes 3 seconds to really get overcome. So I wouldn't start spending money just because of this. You're not gonna. This is not gonna progress into something bigger. Very common on these also to happen. Most people don't even notice that it's there. I wouldn't worry about it. Honestly, you're gonna spend money and what to save 3 seconds on every hot start. Just wait the 3 seconds and life's good. Roberta Hopper, I just had a new brake actuator in my 2007 Highlander Hybrid. The price is 2,600, but the guy gave me a brake sold for 1890. Yeah, that's a good price. These are kind of starting to pop up here and there. Unfortunately, they are expensive, but they're also getting old. So I have a 2005 Corolla XRS. Is it reliable if I use Lyft daily? I don't know if you can lift with it with a car that is 2005. Maybe I'm mistaken. I don't know. But they are reliable. The XRS, if I'm not mistaken, this has the Yamaha engine. They're a little bit harder to work on, but they're very reliable. I wouldn't look at it any differently. They're really good. So Zig 8100, doing a tune-up 2013 Camry V6. Should I replace the coils, oxygen sensors, and PCV valve while have everything off? Anything else I should replace? I want to replace the coils because if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Oxygen sensors, absolutely not. This is not a maintenance item at all. PCV valve, yes, it's a few bucks and it's right there. Might as well replace it. This is something with a PCV valve, except it's like a 2A RFE, which is kind of a nightmare to get to. I mean, these PCV valves, they're what, 10 bucks, $8, something like that. Why wait for it to clog up? Hopefully we don't get it to clog up, because if you follow your oil changes, it should last the life of the car. But just replace it. This is one of those, it's like cheap insurance. Just replace it and be done with it and not have to wonder what's going on with it. But anything else you should replace, I wouldn't replace anything. This is the thing. Look, I am not, I will say this. Maintenance, I always tell you, maintenance is very important for the longevity of your car. But over maintenance, it gets a kind of counterproductive. We're trying to have these cars to be reliable. We're not cheapskates where we are just cutting every corner we can to not spend a penny on this car. No, if the car needs work, I recommend you fix it. Unless it's not worth it, then that's a different story. But we also don't want to overdo it. So replacing oxygen sensors, no, I wouldn't say anything else. Actually, not even the coils. If you're gonna replace the coils, and if you are paying someone, I would just replace the back three, because the fronts, they're very easy to get to. And even the back three, I mean, just pulling the plenum off is not really the end of the world. But this is not something I will tell you to start replacing things when you have the engine out of this car and we have it all torn apart. Then okay, that's a major job. But pulling the plenum off to do coils, it's not the end of the world. I wouldn't do any of that. Just PCB valve, yes, it's something cheap and right there. Why not? But other stuff, I wouldn't. So, Colorado Boo, how you doing, man? Sean O'Connell, you guys are awesome. Nani Gonza, Tony Smith, what year LS500 is best? Um, how do I answer this one? This is a tough one, man. You're killing me here. So, LS500, I'm not going to answer this one actually, because wait for a video that is coming up very, very, very soon, actually. The LS500 got very bad press when it came out. And I think some of it was somewhat correct, some of it was not fair, and it just got thrown to the side and gone and forgotten. We're going to talk about it very soon, and maybe in the next couple weeks, actually. Video dedicated to it, and you'll see there which one is best. Steve K, I don't want to spoil the surprise now because there's something with that LS500 that you'll find out. Steve K, what's the big reveal of the new car? The suspense is killing me. When's the big reveal? Steve, the car has 700 miles right now. Mrs. Car Kirna, I have to say this. Mrs. Car Kirna drove the surprise, I almost said what it is. Drove the surprise car for the first time today alone. She drove it when I first got it. She kind of went around the block with me, and she's like all nervous. Okay, I don't want to drive this. But today, because I had her car blocked by that car, she was in a hurry. She wanted to leave and come back for the live stream. She's like, I'll just take your car. And of course, the parking brake got stuck. Great. So not got stuck. Maybe she just didn't disengage it, or, wait a second, I'm giving you too many clues. I better stop talking. Okay, Christian Berrigan, 2021, Highlander Limited. 2 habits wondering if I should avoid. Using the auto on-off regularly, prematurely wear starter. Habit of switching to manual shift to accelerate and back into auto, bad for the transmission. So the auto on-off, this is the thing with the starter, and this is also a video that is planned and hopefully coming up soon. The starter has a life in these cars. It is literally a computer generated life. It's going to have so many cycles, and then you're going to have a check engine light that comes on, tells you replace the starter. Surprise, surprise. No, this is the most hated feature in new cars, auto stop start. I'm going to talk about it, tell you, most people assume it's just, shut off the car, start it. There's so much involved in it. It's ridiculous for something that everybody hates. But it's going to wear the starter, but the starter is going to get to a point where you have to replace it on these, which is ridiculous, but what are you going to do? But I would shut it off. It's a good feature for the environment, but it's not a very good feature for your wallet down the road. Let's put it this way. That's the best way to put it. And as far as the habit of switching manually to accelerate, I wouldn't. I would just push the gas and have the transmission decide that we're going to downshift, not manually downshift it. I think that is better for the transmission long term. So Robert Padilla, do you work on the Mirai? I do not. I have the technical training on it, not officially through the official channels, but I went and I kind of self-studied for it because I'm very interested in that technology. But I do not have hands-on experience on them because they're only sold in California, I believe, maybe a few other states, but they're not sold in Illinois. I mean, in Illinois, we're still discovering the art of fixing potholes. We haven't gotten to a point where we look at hydrogen cars. So we don't have the infrastructure here. But the Mirai, I wish they would sell it here. I do not have technical information on it. If I do a review on a Mirai, it'll just be me scratching my head, where's everything? Because I'm not very familiar with it. I don't like to talk about things I don't understand, or worse, give advice on them. So, but I wish I could do that. That's something that's in the wish list, if you would. So, Dank Bambi, I bought my 2007 Camry Hybrid from the dealership with 177,000 miles. I now have 200. Is doing my oil change every you're doing your oil change every 5,000 miles. What else should I look into? Your coolant, make sure the coolants for the hybrid system and the engine, spark plugs, if they've never been done, this will be a good time. hybrid fan filter or the fan itself. Make sure that stays clean. Otherwise, really, I mean, fix it as it comes. If you get bad wheel bearings, water pump leaks on these, or some semi-common on these, just look, fix what needs fixing as it comes. Jeremy W, what's up, man? Good to see you. So Chris KR Chris, will Toyota phase out gasoline engines and stick to hybrids or EVs in the future? You know what? I have a very strong opinion about that because I feel like the governments are singing the blues when it comes, oh, we're going to phase out gasoline cars and we're going to put EV. You know what? I invite you to the certain parts of Chicago where you're telling me you're going to put EV charging stations here and they're going to still be there the next day. It's just not going to happen. This is until you see it happen, it's actually not going to happen because there's so much involved here. And people, I mean, hybrids took what, 20 years to become mainstream. EVs are, there's a lot of people, I am one of them, that I have some strong reservations about EVs because of, not because of the car itself, but because of the infrastructure, folks. Have you been in the United States? It's a very big country. It might work in Europe. It ain't gonna work here because when you're driving in the middle of nowhere and you get to a small, really small town with 200 people and in the middle of nowhere, they're not going to see the need to invest a giant amount of money in infrastructure to put this charger and have all these people hanging around waiting for the charger. If they put just one, well, if every car is EV, well, we're going to have a line down the highway with a jumper cable. That's not going to work. So the infrastructure is not, when countries come out and say, oh, in 15 years, we're going to, switch to EV cars. Well, I'm sorry, but I'm not seeing the infrastructure here. Yes, Tesla is pulling it off, but there's only one brand of cars that is using that. There's a few EVs out there, but imagine if everybody drove an EV. What's that going to do to our infrastructure? Do we even generate enough electricity to sustain that? There's a lot of question marks. Can the automotive business pull it off? Oh, yeah. But can the rest of the world be ready for it? I don't know. I have reservations about that. That's the only missing link. So another question, our RAV4 Prime, 2 months old, sometimes makes a weird loud noise while starting up. Yes, we discussed that. This is something under investigation. They're looking into it, but do please report it to your dealership because I cannot that give you any information on unless I see the car because it's something that's trending right now. Not a problem, but until we figure out what it is, we assume the best. Let's put it this way. That's the world with Toyota. So Nahid, would you suggest using transmission additives, Lucas, etc., to a 12-year-old car? Absolutely not. Use the original fluid, and it has enough additives in it to take care of this transmission. There is no magic fluid you add to a car and makes 12, 15 years of neglect all of a sudden disappear. Let's just keep that in mind. There is no such thing. Frank D, I have a 2004 Lexus LS 430. Current time about 6 years old, has 73,000 miles. Should I replace it now? Memory serves, these were 9 years, 90,000 miles. Don't quote me heavily on that because I'm going off memory. Honestly, no, you still have time. I mean, get it to at least 9 years. You might get to 90,000 miles by then, but these belts will, even at 90,000 miles at 9 years, you take them out, they're perfectly fine. But again, the whole idea of timing belt, you don't want to take the timing belt out when it's all starting to shred. You want to take it out when it's still in good condition so you never have issues. So I would wait. I think this is too early to replace it. So Julian Estrada, my Lexus 2001 is misfiring. Is it because I use unleaded fuel instead of premium? This started happening right after fueling. So typically, when you use regular gas in a premium requiring car, you're not going to get misfires. In some really extreme cases, you might, but again, this is an older car. You typically will get like lack of power, knocking, fuel knock. That's usually what you will get, but not really misfiring. I would investigate it as it could be something else, or you could have gotten bad gas. That's another thing. Bad gas is bad gas. It doesn't mean if it's premium or regular, if it has too much water in it, if it's mixed with ethanol, all this stuff, that could be an issue. So Alexander, just want to know if a mechanic can easily identify if an engine and transmission are in good condition. I'm going to buy a Matrix Vibe or Corolla used. Honestly, this is the shocker here for everybody. There is no way for a mechanic to really know the 100% certainty the exact condition of an engine and transmission. But here's what we go off of: service history, look at the oil, listen to the engine, drive it in case of the transmission. Drive it, make sure it shifts fine. But here is something with mechanics that most people just look at it. Well, that's it. That's all you're going to do to determine the condition of this? No, because a mechanic works on cars every single day. All they do is drive cars, fix them. Drive cars, fix them. They have seen again, and this we've just talked about this in today's video. Especially dealership mechanics, when they look at a car, like I've driven the same model when it was brand new. I've driven this model when when the engine was blown up and when the transmission was blown up. And then I've driven the same model when it has 300, 400,000 miles. So you have a basis of what's known good. How does this transmission normally should shift? So when I get in a car, I check the fluid of the transmission. It looks clean, okay. And then I drive it and it behaves the same as my memory of a new car. Why would I have a kind of a reason to think there is an issue? That's the first thing. Same thing with the engines. Like people complain, or, we answer a question today. The V6 engine makes that clattering noise when they're cold. I know that is a known issue. It's not an issue. I'm not going to call it an issue. Actually, I retract that. I know that's a common thing with these engines. I'm not going to immediately say, well, this engine is bad, but other mechanics might, or the consumer might look at it and be like, well, that sounds horrible. I think it's bad, but that's normal. Same thing with the direct injection engines. They sound like a diesel when they're idling. Well, a mechanic will look at that and go, wait a second, there's no problem. That's just how this engine sounds. But someone that doesn't know might be like, well, is this normal? Sounds very loud. It sounds something is wrong. Or maybe a mechanic that's not experienced with that specific car. This is how the inspection goes. This is how mechanics are able to determine, well, I'm comparing this to a known good, but if you do not have an established base of a known good, you're not really going to be able to know anything or give an estimation. But as far as knowing the real condition of the engine and transmission, if you want to really know what's going on 100%, tear the engine apart, a million pieces on the bench, then you'll know exactly what's going on. That's a God honest truth, folks. All right, folks, so we're going to take a few more questions and we'll call it a day here. After another question, JA, after you rebuilt the transmission, how many miles should you do your first transmission oil change? I typically recommend 5 to 10,000 miles actually on a rebuild in a shop, in a transmission shop rebuild. 5 to 10,000 miles, because you're still going to have some debris that you want to get out. But if this is built in a Toyota facility where it's a remanufactured transmission in a transmission facility, not in a transmission shop, business as usual, 60,000 miles, depends on the model, whatever. There's not really a time that you should do your first oil change just because it's a remanufactured transmission in that case. Michelle Donovan, how you doing? I hope you're doing well. Jose Alfredo, at what width do you replace disc brake pads? So I generally recommend when you get to 3 millimeters, you put it on your list heavily. And if you don't want to take chances and you're a busy person and you're probably going to forget about it, and I recommend you replace them at that point. That's like the earliest window of replacement. If you're really that car care nut that will measure your pads frequently and really look at them frequently, you can actually get it to 1 millimeter, and that's what the repair manual says. But going from 1 millimeter to metal is very easy to do. So be careful. If you want to play it safe, 3 millimeters, 2 millimeters, somewhere in that range, I would replace them and be done with it. That, especially if you're reusing your rotors, you're resurfacing them, you don't want to damage them just for the sake of saving, if you're getting a few more miles out of it. It just doesn't make sense. Damon Collins, 2018 Highlander, almost ready for a new battery. Can it be replaced with a regular lead or should it be AGM? Is there anything special needed to address the computer for auto stop start? So that was going to be actually in Damon in the video for stop start, but let me give you the bottom line on the battery. If you buy an original battery, you don't have to do anything. Just swap the battery, life is good. If you replace it with a similar size and capacity battery that is designed for auto start stop, but it is not original, you need to program the computer to tell it, hey, we have this new battery. Let's give you the data for this battery so the computer knows how to handle everything. But if you put a lead acid battery or a battery that is not designed for auto stop start, the computer will actually not like it, and it might either set error messages or it just will have erratic operation, and worst one being a car shuts off and auto stop start and then it wouldn't start back up. So that's the issue here. But I want you to know one thing: you do not absolutely have to stick with the original battery. As long as you can get a battery that is rated for auto stop start that is correct for this car, it's good. But know that you have to go to the dealership or get a scan tool that's capable to program the car. Basically tell it this is a non-original battery that is capable, so the car would know that and would actually operate the system accordingly. What is the benefit? The original battery, it'll actually know what are the capabilities of this battery. So it's going to extend the auto stop start time. If you have a non-original battery, it's not sure how good this battery is, so it's going to limit a little bit on the off time on the auto stop start. That's the only difference, really. So let's. I'm gonna. Sorry, I'm reading some of these messages. I'm gonna take a few, like two questions, and then we'll call it a day. I'll just go run them in the chat, see where you guys are doing. See, I saw this. Let's read. This one doesn't count though. Mrs. Car Carenut, sorry to be late. I'm here now. What have I missed? See that? She was driving the new car. That's why she was late. But I hope you enjoyed the new car. Just as long as you don't say what it is, we're good. All righty. Let's look. So, Corolla XOI. Recently, I changed the differential oil and started making humming noise. It starts around 55 miles an hour at 60 and disappears after 70. Well, you want to go through the standard list of, did you use the right fluid? Is the fluid full? What's going on here? Because if you did not have this noise before you did the replacement and now you do, something went south. If it's immediately, as soon as you change it, you went drive it, something is wrong. But if you did have this noise before and you're trying to fix it by replacing the fluid, I wouldn't worry about it too much. But what I would do is drive it a little bit, a few thousand miles, then pull the fluid again. Look at the magnet. You have a lot of debris on the magnet because something might have happened in that differential. That's the only thing I would look at. Unfortunately, if you have a lot of debris, you might need to take course of action, either take the different parts, see what's happened, or consider a replacement or something like that. All right, folks, let's take the last question and then we'll wrap up the live stream. And if you've been watching my videos for a long time, and specifically the live stream, the last question I take is always the last, because the last is always first. So here it goes. Marlene E. I have a 2007 Camry Hybrid, 93,000 miles, no oil consumption issues yet, but I heard it can start at about 97,000 miles. Should I get them fixed now? If so, how much should it cost? Honestly, there is no way for any mechanic or anybody for that matter to say a certain issue will start exactly at such a specific mileage, 97,000 miles. Marlene and everybody else, I have been inside so many 2A ZFE engines, I lost count. I will tell you the truth. I have done ones as low as 30,000 miles. I have done ones at 203. I think the record was 312,000 miles came in under the campaign. That was kind of ridiculous. Why are we rebuilding an engine on a 312,000 miles? It was actually not a nice car. It was falling apart. But if you do not have oil consumption issues, I would just drive it. I wouldn't fix anything because at this point, if you're not burning oil, why are you fixing anything? If it ain't broke, don't fix it. Because I see so many people spend so much money trying to fix an issue that is not there. Don't do that. Don't be one of those people. Just continue to drive the car. Don't worry about it. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. Who knows? You might go another 100,000 miles and it still doesn't burn oil, and that would be great. But if you waste your money now, well, you're back at the same thing. The car will run exactly the same. So I wouldn't do it. And I am looking. This is Car Karen just sent me a question. Here we go. Cesar Aranda. I'll take this one and then we are done because we don't want to upset Mrs. Car Care not here. I have a 2008 Camry Hybrid. When the car goes from electric to gas, it shakes a bit. I bought it used, but it stopped doing that and started again. So it is somewhat normal for that generation hybrid to shake when you switch between gas and electric. But check the motor mount at the top right next to the engine. It's not really a motor mount. It's like a torque rod called a dog bone mount or something like that. Depends on the term used. But that's the only one I would check that is somewhat common. Also, the motor mount at the bottom, the one right next to the engine on the subframe, that's another one that is somewhat common on these to go bad, especially if it has miles. That's what I would check on this one. All right, folks. So let's see what you guys are talking about at the end here. Karen Baker, great show with Ray and Zach and YIA. They're really cool guys. We had before the video, after the video, we had a good chat. They're really nice guys and genuine. It's so refreshing to see a son father project. That was really nice. They're really genuine people. They're nice guys. Lala G, how you doing, man? Well, are you guys ready for some new content next week? Actually, we had a 2021 Toyota 4Runner today in the Car Care Not HQ, if you would. Army green. Do we like the army green 4Runners? I love that color. Actually, it's a really nice color here. I shot a few videos here on it. It's going to be an interesting few weeks. By the way, I'll say this. We are having a live stream next week, same time, 7 p.m. Central Time. Same time. Sorry, I'm trying to read your comments here. But 7 p.m. Central Time next week. And I have a vacation coming up. I have to take the family out on the yearly vacation here. It's going to be right around Christmas time. So there's going to be a week of no car care nut. Well, you're gonna have the videos, but no car care nut videos. Sorry, Mrs. Car Care Nut just walked in. She loves to do that. The best part is she walked in with her phone because that's where she's doing the live stream and watching. And hold on. So, don't.
Saeed,
Yeah.
do you see his question?
No, where is it? She came in and asked me to answer another question. Let's do this. Which one?
Saeed?
Idris Said?
No, Idris Saeed, yeah.
Okay, I don't see the question. Do you have it?
No, I don't. I can't see it.
I don't see the question. I can answer this. I do not see the question. No, I did not see the question. Okay, sorry, folks. We're just trying. Mrs. Car Care Nut. Can we please see Mrs. Car Care Nut on video, please? Not gonna put her on the spot. She already was like, "We're not gonna do that. Not yet. Not yet. One day. She's just
When
behind the scenes."
me with my dream car,
You know what he says? When you surprise me with my dream car. You know what? We should actually do that. Near future, hopefully. Let's start saving up from now. David and Elizabeth, thank you so much, guys. Guys, you are the best. I really appreciate you from the bottom of our hearts. And thank you for watching the channel. Thank you for watching the live stream. And until the next live stream, everybody, which is next Saturday at 7 p.m., may the Lord bless you and keep you. And you guys have a wonderful night.